Today I want to talk about the beauty of the small harvest. Guten gardening, everybody! Well, you've probably seen some of our massive harvest video. We've had multiple harvests, well over 100 pounds of fresh produce coming in. If I look back on them all, and of course I loved every single one because each of those represented fresh produce for us, but probably my favorite was the Colors of the Rainbow harvest, where we harvested vegetables from every color of the rainbow. I thought that was such a cool experience. Well, today I'm going to talk a little bit about the beauty of the small harvest and why this season we're switching to many smaller harvests rather than a few bigger harvests. Now, that's not to say that we wouldn't necessarily have some videos where we do massive harvests as well, but rather why we're looking at the benefits of doing daily small harvests instead of waiting, say, a week and then doing one of those gigantic harvests. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started harvesting so you can see some of what we have that's ready to come in here in the beginning, mid part of August. I could probably come out and harvest 40-50 pounds of food right now, but again, that's not my goal, because one of the things we noticed is with these smaller harvests, we're able to have fresher produce because we're able to consume or process the amount that we bring in right away. One of the things that we noticed, especially last season, some of those 110, 115 pound harvests was, especially let's take tomatoes, for example. You bring them in, if you don't get those processed within a couple of days, they start to go bad and you could end up losing half of your produce. And so what we found is with these smaller daily harvests, we're able to guarantee fresher produce and less pressure, less stress around trying to get everything processed. Because if we bring in enough for, let's say, the meal or the meals for the day, plus a little bit extra that we can then put up, whether that's freezing, blanching, what have you, then we're able to definitely stay on top of it and it doesn't seem so overwhelming. So we're getting less of an overwhelming feeling, we're processing fresher food, and we're consuming fresher food for our family there in the immediacy of what we have. And it's nice to be able to stay on top of things. It's kind of like weeding the garden. I mean, we've shown you clips where our garden has gotten out of hand because we're not able to stay on it day after day. Anything that you let slide for a couple of days can be a bigger deal. So yes, I'm not saying that we won't do any of those massive harvests this season. I don't mean that. But what I mean is, as a general rule, we've found a lot more contentment and success in bringing in those smaller harvests on a regular basis. You know it's time for a garden candy break. Oh man, these are so good. And my wife and I have talked about this a lot, especially in recent seasons. But if you saw our video where we talked about our broccoli crop this season, where things didn't go according to plan, and yet we were still looking for that zero waste experience with that broccoli, where we were eating every part of the plant. Well, my wife and I have talked about how little we want to waste from the garden. You know how easy it is to harvest something. It looks fantastic. Eggplant is a fantastic example of this, where you harvest it, it looks fresh, it is amazing, and you let it sit for a couple days, just too long, and the inside turns brown, it gets shriveled up. We don't want that to happen. We don't want to waste. The money that goes into this is no joke. I'm not saying that we spend a ton of money now necessarily. Everything we're growing was started from seed here at Guten Gardening. So we're not necessarily spending the money that we have in the past, but there's still fertilizer, there's still other expenses that we have that goes into this, the water bill certainly. So we can't go through a series where we're wasting the food that we need for our family. Anytime we're bringing in those massive harvests, there's more of a danger that we could waste some of that food. So it's not something we want to do whatsoever. So some of the benefits of these smaller daily harvests: fresher produce, less stress from the harvesting in terms of preserving the produce, and of course less waste, which is an essential part of what we want to do. They talk about vine ripe tomatoes at the store. Well, we've got vine-ripe tomatoes that are actually ripe, actually ready to be eaten. And we found that if we leave them on the vine, not too long, you don't want them to be overripe, but if we leave them on the vine, they're more likely to stay fresh than if we just bring them and sit them on the table for too long of a period of time. And then the other thing we got to thinking about was perspective. Because for us, a small garden harvest might seem like a bigger harvest for other people, especially if you have even less space to garden in than we do. But sometimes when we do those massive 120, 130 pound harvests and we're sitting there telling you, grow your own food and take these bite-sized self-sufficiency pledges, encouraging you to grow one more item, it can be probably, I'm thinking it could be overwhelming to see a massive harvest from us when we're sitting here saying, grow what you can. And part of our goal has always been, in addition to reaching and teaching and empowering people to garden like this, it's to inspire you, not to overwhelm you. You have to know that the amount of work that goes into a garden, even this size, is quite a lot. And so whenever we bring in one of those big harvests, we're not sitting there saying that this is the expectation of everyone, or that you should expect to get this much, and if you're not getting this much, there's a problem. So what we're doing now with these smaller harvests hopefully seems maybe more manageable to you as you're getting started with your garden, as you're growing your own produce in whatever space that you have. Realistically, every piece of food that we bring in, every piece of fresh, organic produce that we bring in is one less thing that we have to get from the store. But beyond that, it's one more healthy item that we can add to our family's diet. And if we think about the true overall purpose of everything we do here in the garden, it's not just about the cost at the store. It's about making sure that our family can eat healthy foods on a regular basis. And that's something that we aspire to encourage other people to do. And so we're out here on a daily basis picking the freshest organic food that we can and either eating it right away or preserving it in its state that's as close to the time of harvest as possible. And to us, that just makes a lot of sense. And I think based on what we've been preparing inside, and believe me, we're gonna have some recipe videos coming up. We're not a recipe channel, but we're gonna have some of those coming up in the near future. But that's helped us out a lot, making sure we're consuming the vegetables at their optimal state for their optimal benefit. We can see what 10 minutes in the garden does in terms of a harvest right beside me. It's not massive, but we've got everything that we need, certainly for the day, and a little bit more in this harvest. We've got enough for salads. We've got the ability now to make some refrigerator pickles, which is something I'm a big fan of, and so are my daughters actually. And I'm probably gonna go back out and grab some more cherry tomatoes, because a lot of the volunteers, as you might have suspected, that came back this season were cherry tomatoes. So I got a whole bunch more of those, and those are super easy to freeze. Just put them in a freezer bag and freeze them, and they last for a long time. So I'll probably do that as well. There's more food out here, but I'm not gonna overwhelm myself. And I would say that right here is the reason why we've fallen in love with these daily harvests. This is everything we need, and it's not in the least bit overwhelming in comparison to those larger harvests. Well, let us know what you think about harvesting daily versus one big harvest. What's your opinion about this? I mean, this is something that is definitely different from what we've done in seasons past, and I don't just mean for YouTube, because that's not certainly our end goal here in terms of why we're growing our vegetables. So let us know what you think. Do you typically get out and try to harvest daily, or do you wait for bigger harvests and just try to spend an entire day putting up your food? What do you do? What's your preference? Well, we hope you enjoyed today's video. I realize it wasn't really a traditional garden tour like we usually do, but I wanted you to understand our rationale behind how we're working with our vegetables this season. If you did enjoy today's video and found it useful, please don't forget to give us a like, leave us a comment, remember to share and subscribe, and most importantly, remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.